welcome to another episode of the Splitfire Gaming Podcast. Like buses, you wait for one and three come along at once. We've got a recurring friend of the show, Scott, back again. Welcome back, Scott.
Hello.
You'll be claiming expenses again. You'll be claiming a salary before that.
Yes, that's the ultimate aim.
To quote another famous fantasy, podcast, other podcast guests are available, or not, as the case may be.
They're not as cool, though, or apparently have as much spare time on their hand available to come onto the podcast.
Yeah, that's the thing. How available are you? And everybody else says, I'm not. But for some reason you are.
I just like to feel wanted.
Well, it works out for me. I don't have to pester as many people. And you seem to get a lot of views, so I'm happy with it.
See, everyone wins. Because people obviously tune in to listen to my dulcet tones as they nod off to sleep.
Well, it's like ASMR, isn't it? Yeah, you turn that on.
Just white noise to people.
Yeah, just to put you to sleep. We endlessly talk about nonsense. Speaking of nonsense, we have decided to discuss the Cardiff Christmas Crusade, which we are going to, it'll be next Saturday, isn't it?
Yes. What day is that? Is it the 17th?
Something like that. People could be listening to this in the year 2030, so it doesn't really matter. But...
That's true. The 19th, it turns out. 19th and 20th of November.
Well, this is not a narrative. This is another... It's based on the Triple Crown comp. That's what they use, but they've done some tweaks to it. But we actually went to the first Cardiff Crusades, which was that...
Oh, just after sort of lockdown, etc. finished, so
a
year or so ago?
Yeah, lockdown ended, and then this was one of the first ones that got back up and running.
We were all masked, weren't we? It was the first Warhammer event since COVID, and did they have about 70 attendees?
Yeah, they had about 70, and it was massive. It was huge, and it was at Firestorm Games in Cardiff, which is a massive, really nice venue, which these have kept using. So
yeah, incredible.
It's an car showroom. Yeah, so it's all glass, so it's a really nice venue.
It was warm, wasn't it?
It was very warm. 70
Thankfully,
people.
It is now winter.
It might be a bit different. It's still a greenhouse.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we didn't know what to expect than the last time, and Cardiff is just a wild place. I think that's putting it mildly.
Cardiff is savage. Savage. People who've not been to Cardiff need to know the place is just utter carnage.
It is. It's wild. That was also the time where the petrol was running out. That's a distinct memory I have. Is trying to go home and thinking I've got about 30 miles left, and every petrol station I was going to had no petrol. So
yes, that was the big takeaway from the last one. That was terrible.
It was an interesting time. Just flashing it back now. Last time I took the Ilarial list, and I don't think I did particularly well. Well, I don't know. I can't even remember where I placed in that one.
I came fourth.
I didn't come anywhere near fourth.
Fourth. So close, yet so far.
Are you planning on beating that this time?
No, the list I've taken, no. It's going to be far funnier, though.
Well, the thing I also remember about Cardiff last time was ending up crashing not a christening, was it a wedding party?
I think, and Stan would be at the correct us if he was here, I think we crashed a 21st birthday party ended up on a street drinking Red Stripe until who knows what time in the morning.
That was it.
What a time to be alive.
That's how you celebrate the end of lockdown. Somebody else's birthday party drinking Red Stripe in the street. Yep. It was a Caribbean rum bar.
Yes, it was. It was excellent. It was on a dive, and I loved it.
I think we should try to repeat that.
Oh, absolutely. Of Couldn't agree more.
If I can remember where it was. It wasn't even in the city, was it? It was in the outskirts.
It was like, yeah, where we had an Airbnb. It's just somewhere in between the city centre and the venue.
Well, this year, I wasn't gonna go. I wasn't too minded about whether to go to this one, and it was actually when we were going to. Was it the Triple Crown?
Was it the Triple Crown? Yes, it was the Triple. It wasn't the narrative. It was the GT.
It was a GT, and I remember being in the queue for Greg's at the services, and he was saying, "Are you going to Cardiff?" And I said, "Well, probably not." And then he said, "It's 50% loads." And I thought, "You can take 5 Phoenixes in 50% loads. I'm in."
So, yeah, that was pretty much the extent of the conversation, wasn't it?
Well, you told me, you and Stan had told me about the ludicrous lists that you were considering taking. So I thought, actually, yeah, I will go, and I'll see what I can do.
Join our idea of just going to an event and taking ludicrous lists and spending Friday and Saturday drinking.
Red Stripe, ludicrous lists, savagery,
yeah,
and petrol, so we're not going to get stuck.
Yes, exactly.
so yeah, thought I'm in.
That nicely segues into talking about the ludicrous lists, doesn't it?
It does. I've already given a bit of a spoiler, but I'll keep everyone in suspense. What are you bringing?
So my list, I had to make a relative short-term adjustment purely based on painting time following the recent house move.
Everyone's getting sick of that excuse. It's
oh, I know, but I'm just going to flog it till it's a dead horse. So the intention, the original list, so to speak, was 2 Ghoul Kings, both riding Terrorgeists, one with Aura of Dark Majesty for the -1 LD, one with Curse of the Revenant and Scabscrath for an additional Scream, and then 2 Terrorgeists in rare, so that I would have had 4 Terrorgeists on the board, 5 Death Shrieks, and then some other stuff, essentially. So that the 2 lords were 50% of me army plus a level 1 Necromancer. Then obviously 2 Terrorgeists, a unit Hex Wraith, and then the core was bang on 625, so I didn't have to take a penny over. Sadly, because of the aforementioned lack of painting, I have had to drop one of the Ghoul Kings from the army list, which I'm sure makes everybody as sad as it makes me, because no one enjoys screaming as much as I enjoy screaming.
So you've unfortunately had to make a concession to...
I have, yeah. So the original list, would you believe, was also +1 on their comp, which was wild. So with that in mind, I've decided I've only got enough time to actually get one of those additional Terrorgeists painted. So the character setup now looks like Count Manfred on a Hellsteed. So I've had to drop 1 Scream, but I have sort of subbed in a powerhouse of magic casting, Lawmaster, Vamps, Lawmaster, Death, and he's flying. So, flying Purple Sun, and Spirit Leech.
Spirit Leech.
Absolutely, because I don't leave home without a Spirit Leech if I can avoid it.
I think should be a drinking game that you have to drink every time you mention Spirit Leech on these episodes.
We'd not be in a good spot, would we?
Well, we might be, but everybody else would be.
So Count Manfred's subbed in as my general instead of one of the Ghoul Kings, and the rest of my character allowance is made up by a Ghoul King on a Terrorgeist who has Scabscrath, Curse of the Revenant, and Dragonbane Gem, so that I retain a double Scream from that model.
And remember, this is reduced from the previous number of screams.
This is one whole less Scream. Core 40 skeletons, 40 zombies, 30 zombies, 30 zombies, 5 direwolves, 5 direwolves.
Not interested.
Nobody cares. Let's be honest. It's 16 on the money because I just need it. Exactly. Special 5 hex wraiths. Part of us wishes I'd gone for 10 just for the absolute lols, but it was that or a Terrorgeist, and we know where my love lies. 2 spirit hosts, individual units for amazing ethereal chaff, and then rare is another 2 Terrorgeists, and the army rounds out at exactly 2,500, -1 on their comp score, so pretty close to 0, and it's got a meager 4 screams.
You couldn't, just for practicality's sake, you couldn't paint the last one to get to 5, but that was your intention.
Oh, 100%. And I will revisit that if some crazy place ever lets us take 50% modes again. Obviously, it's not the most competitive by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, a gun line would.
Oh yeah, a gun line or a light council, and to be honest, I might as well not bother unpacking the army and I'll just get drunk. However, if I don't play one of those, and even if I do, it's still going to be hilarious.
And what's your overall strategy for this? Is it just fly up, scream, repeat?
Fly up, scream, and hopefully, if I can play someone with low initiative, 6 dice per person. Because, in all honesty, why the hell not? Like, why not?
To the max, I think that's.
So yeah, look, I mean, obviously having a flying Manfred means I've got like all of the death snipes available, as well as the debuffs, and obviously some of that debuff is on LD.
Is he Lawmaster Death?
Lawmaster Death and Lawmaster Vampires.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yes, I mean, he's a lot of points, and he doesn't have a ward save.
And he could explode.
And he can explode, but you know, if you can't explode, then what's the point?
That's that's giving a bit of balance to the list.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's going to be incredibly fun to play, regardless of the outcome. Was the army the intention of the list is it's a 1-trick pony, although it's a 2-trick pony, I suppose. Now that I've had to drop a Terrorgeist and put in Manfred, but it does what it does. I think what it does very well. Other than that, it does nothing. But it will definitely be fun to play. And I suppose something else we should mention, which is one of the reasons I have taken it, is that in Cardiff Crusade, hills and impassable terrain are infinitely high, so you can hide beasts behind it.
Yes, that's very important in both our lists, I think.
Very.
And it's
beasts or flying general who doesn't have a ward save.
You don't need a ward save if you can't be targeted.
Exactly that.
That's sort of the theme of all of our lists. The entire intention of going there was all your eggs in one basket and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, you were right to preface it earlier. Like, we purposely made lists that were just going to be hilarious.
Well, we've done it all before. Like, it's in another Ilaria list. Yeah, I've done it before. But why not take something absolutely ludicrous?
Well, with that in mind, Mark, we've discussed my ludicrous list. What about your ludicrous list?
Well, I have it in front of me. So, here we go. Lords, General, Anointed of Assyrian on a Frost-Dart Phoenix. Lords, another Anointed of Assyrian on another Frost-Dart Phoenix. Heroes, Caradrian on Ashtari, who is a Frost-Dart Phoenix. Then there's some core, which isn't so exciting. So 10 Illyrian Reavers with bow and spear, and standard musician. And then 5 sets of silver helms with the standard bearer and musician. And then rare again, 2 Frost-Dart Phoenixes for a grand total of 5 Frost-Dart Phoenixes.
And how many models in core?
How many models in core? 25.
All mounted.
All mounted. There is no infantry in this list at all. There's no magic in this list at all, which is brand new to me.
New for you. Who needs magic when you've got 5 Phoenixes?
Well, magic can go wrong, can't it? You can roll to miscast, so if you just remove that entirely, you don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it once by turn 2 anyway when all of your phoenixes are in combat.
That's the idea, but my comp score is +1.
It's incredible.
So it's a very fluffy list. We can take it by this.
Yes, I agree. As was my previous list before I had to drop a Terrorgeist. If you're positive, you're taking a fluffy list.
Well, it makes sense. Like Radrian and 2 Anointeds, who technically should be lower in rank than him, but are in fact lords and therefore higher in rank. Don't get that. Are floating about with some more Frost Dark Phoenixes and some Illyrian Reavers and Silverhelms are there.
Look, they were obviously just flapping around for a fly.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking the flock of phoenixes out for a fly.
Well, apparently it's an Odyssey of Phoenixes. That's the name for a group of Phoenixes. So,
of course it is.
I have got an Odyssey of Phoenixes.
You've got an Odyssey and some horses.
And in the spirit of what we were saying before, this is all eggs, one basket. There's no steadfast. There's no infantry blocks. There's no shooting really, except the Reavers have got some very devastating strength 3 bows. No magic. No stubborn. So
5 phoenixes though.
5 phoenixes. The dream is to get all 5 of them into one big block and roll 5 d6 thunderstomps. That would be
that's the dream, isn't it?
That would be pretty good.
Because Phoenixes force always strike last, does that mean they go at the same time as the Thunderstomp?
Yes, it's the same initiative step. So even if you do kill the one or wound it, it still gets its Thunderstomp.
And to be honest, killing a Phoenix in combat is a lot easier said rather than done.
Yeah, the only downside, in which I think tournament organisers in the future should change this, is the -1 strength aura doesn't stack, whereas I think it should. And
you coming on and trying to get Frostheart buffed is frankly the most outrageous thing that's ever been said.
Well, I think they're quite underpowered because of that. And you know, like Skaven spells, Plague, is it Wither, where you can actually kill a unit by dropping its toughness permanently. You should be able to do that with Frost Darts. So if you're strength 3 and you get charged by 3 Frost Darts, it should stack, and that should kill the unit because you've got a stat down to 0.
No, it's just ridiculous.
Then,
enough of your nonsense.
Then they might be priced accordingly. You know, otherwise they're overcosted, I think.
I mean, they're the cheapest filth in the game.
It's hard to disagree, but I don't care.
Look how happy you sound though with your army of 5 Phoenixes and some other stuff.
Yeah, there's some other there's a Cortex there that might do something or might not. Who knows? I'm not going to worry about that too much.
Safe to say, they're outrageous lists.
I have enjoyed painting it though, because I painted Karagian ages ago, and I think I've used him only once against you, where I didn't even factor in Dragonbane Gem, and he didn't manage to kill a Ghoul King.
Good times there.
Yeah, don't make that mistake twice. But I had 2 Phoenixes, and I bought 2 more Phoenixes with the Anointeds on. It's been quite nice to paint them, because they're all different colours, so they're all different ages and different intensities of cold.
To be fair, obviously I've seen the pictures of them, and you've done a really nice job on them, and it will look really cool on the board as well. Let's be honest.
Well, I played friend of the channel, Rob Nixon, the other day in his Skaven, and a lot of things went wrong for him. I wasn't saying this is a master strategy, but at the end, I didn't have enough space around what was left of his Screaming Bell unit to charge the last Phoenix in. They literally ran out of space, so...
You're a bad man.
Yeah, I didn't feel... Well, yeah, I did feel great. There were rats. Solving the rat problem. It didn't help. Yeah, well, his own people had betrayed him and started blowing up his own warp lightning cannons, and his Grey Seer went into the realm of chaos. And
that's turn 1, didn't he?
Turn 1, yeah. So that's not really a good example of... I've only played it once, and I don't think that's a really good indicator of what it can do, because the Skaven sabotage themselves for most of it.
Good times, though.
So there's the list. Now, Cardiff tend to do scenarios on their for their missions. Slightly more.
Yeah, they're custom, aren't they? Like really quite. It's much more, I think, in line with for those people who play 9th Age, probably, whereas they're quite certainly not the scenarios out of the Big Red Book by any stretch.
No, and even Triple Crown do them their own thing, like Watch Hill instead of Watchtower, and there's the Banners one. But they seem to they've generated their own, so they're all based on scoring units in Cardiff. So to be scoring, you've got to
start with a banner.
Yeah, you've got to have a banner, and you've got to be at least 10 models for infantry and 5 models for cavalry.
And characters never count as scoring, even if it's the general or BSB. It's purely units.
Yeah, purely units. And skirmishers don't count as well, or units with fly or hover. That's because you've got the missions are all very much objective based rather than just.
Which clearly, again, we paid absolutely zero attention to when making our hilarious lists.
Well, to be fair, I did give the Silver Helms. You might be wondering why have I given the Silver Helms banners? That's because I wrote one draft of the list and then realised I hadn't actually read any of the missions, and I probably couldn't actually score anything.
So how many banners do you have?
I actually have 1, 2, 3. I've got 4.
Solid. I also have 4, but yours are a lot more mobile than mine.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I might just. They might gain me an objective at some point if I get in the right place at the right time, or they might all die. But either way,
you're actually okay with it.
I'm not too concerned either way.
Yeah,
I'll deal with it.
Objectives are for losers.
Yeah. Certainly with
one-trick pony army lists are winners.
Correctly. I can't focus on bringing 5 phoenixes and the objectives at the same time. That's just not possible.
It's too much to comprehend.
Sorry, go
on. Likewise, I can't waste time worrying about objectives when I need to decide what I'm screaming at.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to say we are in the spirit of this. We're just in one particular element of 50% Lords and Heroes.
We saw that. We just got really excited.
Yeah. You don't really need to read the rest. Although it might help to know basically what you're doing. But I've got the missions on here, so let's have a look. So this is the first one, which is Frontline Clash. So it looks like standard battle line. However, the objectives are at the end of each game turn after the first, the player with the most scoring units within 6 inches of the centre of the board gains a counter. At the end of the game, the player with the most counters wins a secondary objective and gains 500 victory points. So there's going to be a big punch up in the middle of the board, essentially.
Well, I'm going to march my blocks of undead troops forward, leave them there, stop worrying about them while I flap around screaming and casting spells.
Well, in a tactic that might shock you, I'm also going to park my cavalry on the centre line and then fly around with 5 phoenixes and see what happens.
Yeah, I think after that, nothing to worry about. To be fair, as a comp, or not to sound dismissive of the Cardiff guys, because actually, as a scenario, I quite like it.
Yeah, I do like it because it rewards. You can't just sit back. You've got to you've got to be aggressive with it, because otherwise,
because you start maximum starts 12 inches away. So turn 1, and because it's a counter that builds. It's not like you can hold and then rush to the end of the game. You need to get there. And you need to get there early and stay there in an ideal world.
And if you start losing it, it's going to be hard to bring that back.
Yeah, I actually if I know we're flippantly talking about not caring about the shows, but actually I think this is a really quite fun scenario.
Yeah,
and one actually like a correctly written army or an army written with any of the scenarios remotely interested is interesting, and I love the idea of getting everything to the middle, and then the push and shove of a good old fashioned brawl.
Yeah, I like that. And also it sort of puts you off the Death Star in a way, in that if you park your Death Star on there, that's one, but you could park 3 littler units on there, and you're not going to win the objective.
Yeah, and I think if I use say like not quite your list, but if I was taking Dark Elves, and you've got several units of Dark Riders that happen to have a banner and are therefore incredibly flexible, being fast cav, you can just dance around and you can always have a minimum of 3 in the scoring zone, plus probably a Death Star or 2 decent sized units.
Yeah. I like anything that encourages, like, don't just sit back, because you've got to get to that middle line as quickly as possible. I would think, because the start, when that counter starts ticking away, it's going to be very difficult to bring it back.
It'll be interesting to see what we think about this when we do a summary after the event. Because yeah, I'm with you. For me, it encourages you to get there, turn 1, sit there, and just try to soak up as many points as you can.
Yeah. And 500 victory points, that's quite a swing, because it's still the 20-0 system, which I've printed that off. No, I haven't. But I think it's the same as it normally.
Yeah, so over 2,000 points, 2,001 points or above is a 20-0. So it goes up in brackets of 200. So that 500 points is the equivalent of a 3-bracket swing, potentially.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
It's big. But I like that as a starting one as well. I think it sets a good tone for their event from a scenario point of view.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay.
So the next one is
the first of the strange deployments.
Yeah, Dawn Assault. So it says,
so essentially you start at angles from one another, 18 inches from the board edge.
Yeah, but it says the player choosing the deployment zone also chooses the short board edge, and the other player gets the opposite. So you're playing from the short edge.
Oh, you're playing short edge to short edge.
When declaring special deployment. Sorry, what?
No, deployment zones are more than 12 inches away from the centre line and more than quarter. Oh yeah, sorry. It just reads really strangely. Apologies.
Yeah, so you are playing short edge, but it doesn't really matter until the special rule comes in, which is you can keep up to 2 of your units as reinforcements, which deploy as per ambushers, except they must be placed touching the owner's short board edge when they arrive. So I'm not sure what the advantage to that would be. If it's got to be your short board edge. Because ambushes are going to be miles away from... If you put everything on the extreme corner, like as far up as you can, that's the furthest away from your short board edge.
And the deployment zones are still centre to centre, like as on the large board edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange. So you essentially start in like a 2/3 corner.
Yeah.
Opposite one.
Yeah, so you're not like... It's not like Battle for the Pass where you're across it, but it mentions the short board edge for ambushes, so...
Yeah. I suppose that means you can actually start. You can come on as an ambusher though on the opponent's side of the table.
Yeah, that's what it is. That quarter gap. Yeah,
where it lets you come on. Yeah. Actually, interesting.
Yeah, I get it.
I quite like it. It's overly complex until you read it properly. And then I suppose this we've actually got the scenario part of it as well.
Oh, have I included that? I don't think I have. But it says...
So the player with the most scoring units inside the opponent's deployment zone wins the secondary objective for, again, 500 victory points.
Right. So
and this one is the end of the game. so it could go well for while your phoenixes are off being cool. You could then, quite near the end, fire off your very fast elven cavalry into the deployment zone, assuming they're alive.
There's no guarantees. The ambushes rule is not very good, though, is it? Is it 4 that come on?
It's terrible.
Yeah. So it could essentially, I mean, it's only 2 units, which for a normal army wouldn't be a problem, but for the list I've written is quite significant.
I suppose if you so wished, you could keep 2 of your Silver Helm units in the
that's what I would,
just as something different.
I think that's what I would do. And then, as you're saying, even if you wait until I think it's turn 4, they automatically come in, isn't it? Or am I confused?
I think we're confusing, but also I'd have to check because I've never used ambushers.
I've never used it.
The very start of 8th, I don't like the rule. It's one of the reasons why I used to have Wood Elves. I didn't really take Glade Riders. I just don't like ambush as a rule.
I know it's not very good because the swing is so huge that you could not have a lot of your units for a big chunk of the game.
Yeah, but that said, it's different, and the secondary objective once again encourages forward play.
Yeah, that's that's aggressive, isn't it? And then you could almost sort of be swapping sides as you're passing them. Do you wait and fight them in the middle, or do you abandon that and go around for the extra victory points?
Yeah. Something similar to game 1. I'm probably going to march forward turn 1 before my generals then nowhere near the rest of my foot troops.
I'll just fly around and then
it'll take ages for my then undead to shamble forwards into the deployment zone.
Oh yeah, you've got all that general aura nonsense to worry about.
Yeah, and I actually give a crap about the objective while I'm running around screaming and giggling to myself.
But you could ambush on some zombies, and that's.
I could use. To be honest, I might actually think about ambushing on the 2 units of 30 zombies plus hilarious ambushing zombies.
Because that's only 18 inches.
To be honest, that's still. You'd need 4 turns if the general wasn't nearby to get there because they're moving 4. So there won't be ambushing. They'll be starting near the general, marching forward 8, potentially getting Van Hells, and then getting left.
Just cast Van Hells over and over again. Everything will be fine.
But yeah, I like it in the fact that it once again encourages aggressive play.
So the next one is.
Oh, you've cut off the top, but I'll read through it.
Oh yeah,
this one's got a lot of text. So this one you can see a bit of on the diagram. Deployment zones are no more than 8 inches away from the centre line, but units must be deployed more than 20 inches away from enemy units. So during your first 3 deployment turns, each player must deploy a single unit if possible and cannot deploy any characters unless they have to. Special deployments ignore these rules. So essentially, every time, if you drop first, puts you at a big advantage because your opponent can't drop anything within 20 inches of any of your troops.
Yeah, it's proper area denial.
Very interesting.
And that that eliminates a lot of first turn charging because you think 8 inches, 16 inches away. That's a pretty good charge for a flyer anyway.
Yeah, every time you put a unit down, you force your opponent back like a minimum of 4 inches.
Yeah.
Which I find, like I say, it's intriguing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, that.
And then, I suppose the scenario rules, we can talk about the whole thing as a collective, is King of the Hill. So after spell selection, so therefore before any deployment or anything like that, choose a terrain piece that isn't impassable and then not fully inside your own deployment zone. So there's a lot of scenery therefore in the middle of the table, one would assume, or on your opponents. And you need to then capture that terrain piece, and you do so by having any scoring unit in the terrain feature at the end of the game. And if you do so, but do not let yours be captured, it's 500 VPs. But if they both get captured, no one gets it.
So this is sort of the opposite of that. Is that sort of defensive, encouraging defensive play?
This is a bit of a real mix and match, isn't it? You've got to both capture the opponents whilst defending yours.
And the further up you deploy to get into the opponent, the further away you're actually pushing them.
Yes, this is a real thinking one when it comes to deployment and movement. And once again, focuses on scoring units, so you can't capture the said terrain piece by just flying in a general, for example, on say a Phoenix.
Outrageous! How dare they?
Well, I agree. My flying general should also be allowed to capture things. But you can see why, with some of their scenarios, that they don't let flyers score. Although, to be fair, fast carve are almost just as maneuverable.
It's just the dangerous terrains you're going to have to be slightly concerned about. If it's a forest.
Interesting. Yeah, of course. Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, it is, because you want to keep something back to keep your forest, or otherwise it's mutually assured destruction.
I suppose this could well be one of those scenarios where you get a lot of games where no one gets the objective.
Yeah, I think
it definitely favours some certain build armies, I think. But interesting, I think it's how much do you commit to attack versus how much do you commit to defence.
But like standard build high elf, what I would do is just stick my archers in the terrain piece, because they'll be fine, and then move the White Lion Horde, Phoenix Guard, whatever, to take the other one.
Yeah. Well, I've got no fast scoring units, so c'est la vie.
But that's because that's the Vanguard rules, isn't it? Just turned up to 11. You can't deploy within 20 inches of the enemy.
Yeah. You can really be quite smart with where you try to force your opponent almost to place themselves.
Where you could force them, like if it's dwarves would move anyway, but you could force them right into the back line.
Ish. I mean, obviously you can only be because the centre line's where it is. You can.
It's 16.
You only force them.
So it's 4 inches back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely be interesting to see this scenario in practice, I think, to be honest.
I can't say I'm going to take any finesse with that. I'm probably just going to line 5 Phoenixes right on the line and hope for the best.
Oh, I mean, when it comes to defending your train piece, I'm probably going to leave probably the zombies there and hope that me skeletons eventually get to where they need to be to score it. Truth be told, I'm not going to care, and I'm going to fly around screaming and casting spells.
I'll probably just leave the units. It's getting quite a common theme that I'll just leave some silver helms there and hope for the best.
I suppose because of how flexible, because of how fast your units are, though, you could essentially get your phoenixes across there, kill whatever's on the hill, give or take, possibly. Then, quite late game, get your silver helms marching across to take it.
Yeah, and if anything goes wrong, the phoenixes could probably come back, with enough time.
All depends where the terrain piece is, because again, you've got to remember you can't choose something that's wholly within your own deployment zone. So actually, when we were talking about being defensive, you can't defend it because you haven't actually got it to start with.
I wonder if this is going to be pre-set up, because if that was me and we're setting the table up, I would just put like 1 inch or one tiny bit protruding not in my deployment zone and the rest of the terrain feature in my deployment zone.
Oh, tell you, both players can choose the same terrain feature.
Oh,
that's what we're talking about.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. Then it becomes like a real battle for the hill. Interesting. I like it though. Again, to be fair to them, it's quite different, and it should be interesting to see.
I've never seen anything like that before.
No, it's different.
I actually think if two people pick the same terrain piece. I think that would be more interesting.
Agreed. Well, it becomes essentially a bit like
Let's watch
Hill.
Yeah, Watch Hill. Yeah. Oh, fair enough then. Yeah, one each.
Yeah.
I think I've missed a bit out of the next one as well, but let's have a look.
Well, they are big pieces of text. No, you've got all this one.
Oh, there we go.
This is bits of text. To be fair,
this is encircled. So it says the player choosing deployment zone decides if they want to be the attacker or the defender. The attacker must deploy more than 9 inches from the center line. Well, it's explained there in the little map. So
yeah, I think that says it better than the text, doesn't it? To be honest.
So the defender has a bulge in the middle, and the attacker has the sides where they can deploy a bit more forward.
At all points, you remain give or take 18 inches apart, except 12 inches apart, except at the 2 protruding points, where actually you're only 18 inches apart. So if you get some decent units on those corners, you could look for some sweet first turn charges potentially.
If you had, say, a few phoenixes.
Some may say that. Like, if by any chance you happened to have several phoenixes, that could well lead to some first turn shenanigans.
This is what I played Rob on. And he was the defender.
But did you happen to deploy on those corners, did you, and then get Phoenix shenanigan-y?
I didn't, because he had so many cannons and things that could wreck them. I hid the Phoenixes behind impassable terrain on turn 1, anticipating the Storm Banner to come. The Howling Warpgale to come, which it did, but then the Greyseer decided he wanted to go into the Realm of Chaos immediately after. So
now, what I like about the special rules to this, though, once you've seen the specials of deployment, the then special rules is after spell selection, you reveal how many scoring units you have. Your opponent then gets to pick 3 to destroy. If they've only got 2 or 1 or 0, you pick alternative units. And the player who destroys the most scoring units that you've selected gets the secondary objective at 500.
I'm sure they had something similar to this in the first time we went.
Yes, yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
I like things like this.
Yes, so do I.
Because it makes you start making important decisions. Do you go after trash, but it's worth more because it's a scoring unit? Or do you go for the big unit that's worth a lot of points if you destroy it?
And you and I have both got 4 banners.
Yeah.
So they can pick 3 of our 4 scoring units, I suppose.
When I did it with Rob, that mission, he just killed all of my scoring units with not really much problem. So I think I can write off that objective for me anyway.
I suppose it depends what that table looks like, because actually you could technically hide your scoring units.
Do you have to kill all 3?
No, it's who kills the most.
Who kills the most, right.
It's it's kill the most, essentially, it's kill the most of the marked scoring units, right. And whoever does so gets 500 points.
No, I like that. That's
actually, to be fair to them, that's now 4 in, and once you read through them properly, I quite like all of their scenarios.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they are pretty good.
They actually encourage some different styles of gameplay rather than your traditional, and I like stuff like that. That makes you think about the game in a different manner.
It's going to be interesting to set some of these up.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that though. Like, there's a bit of a wonky deployment, which adds a little bit.
It's just something like you're not used to it.
Yeah, a bit different. But I think like the biggie is that again, who can kill the most of the marked scoring units.
I like that. That's probably the one I like the most so far. Because I like having units with targets on their heads.
Yes, same. I might even see if I can dig out a couple of markers to physically put on them.
Well, I've got the objectives from the narrative game, so I might take that along.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have them, and I don't know how accessible they are in the room. That's just essentially a lot of modelling things in boxes stacked, because that's the room that the new bathroom suite's going to get delivered into?
They will be in the box that's the furthest away from the door, under the most important stuff.
Oh, I know exactly where they are because they're in with the Tomb Kings from the narrative in a box. That box is at the bottom of a stack.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. I looked at them today and thought, box.
Just have to use a pen lid or something to mark it. So the last one, refuse blank. So this is a bit like meeting engagement. That is the one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the board is divided in halves by a diagonal line across the board. Whoever gets deployed, each deployment zone deployed, decides which diagonal to use. And then the objective: immediately after determining deployment zones, both players place one marker on the battlefield, starting with a player who chose the deployment zone. Each player must place the marker within the center point, more than 12 inches from the deployment zone. A marker is controlled by the player with the most scoring units within 6 inches of the center of the marker. So if you control the most markers, you win the secondary objective, which is similar to the one at the narrative, actually.
It is, but there's only 2 markers.
Yeah.
So you have to place it at least 12 inches away from your own deployment zone, and at least a third of the long board edge from this point marked by the other mark. So it's got to be 24 inches apart, essentially.
So, and it's got to be, so is this just going to force it into the middle? I'm trying to get my head around the measurements here.
Or into your opponent's deployment zone.
Yeah. But again, that's encouraging aggressive play if you put it there.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's essentially just going to be a battle for the pair of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the fact that you have to put it outside your deployment zone, and then because you've got to put it outside your deployment zone, and so does your opponent. It really makes you think if you're a fast, aggressive army, you might want to place it far back into your opponent's deployment zone to force them backwards.
Yeah.
To hold it. So, for example, if I was you playing my army, I would put the one for you to get right at the back of my zone, because I'm then never going to get to yours, because my army's so slow with any kind of meaningful numbers.
And then you're going to have to start. You don't really want to start turning things around, do you? But that's sort of forcing that decision.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite an intriguing scenario.
It's quite brutal that there's only 2 as well.
If there was, because in say the narrative there was 4
yeah.
type thing, there was some flexibility and some you could feint which way you were going, whereas this one is very much he has 2 targets, like come at them, come and get them.
And there was an element of randomness in the narrative, which there isn't here. It's just you've got to take them.
Both, and they've got to be they're 24 inches apart. That's a big chunk of that could be a big chunk of space apart for an army such as vampire counts with very little maneuverability.
Oh, dwarfs! Like a dwarf list. How they do with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if I was playing against dwarfs, I'd be putting that marker as far up away from my deployment zone as I could.
Yeah. That's good.
Oh, sorry. To be fair, so I put it right in the centre because it's 12 inches from your deployment zone. Essentially means you can put it 3 inches outside of their deployment zone, approximately, and it's in that centre ground to come and get it.
That's quite interesting because you've got a big decision to make at the start of the game, and you can't, like, if you deploy that objective wrong, you can't really recover from that.
Yeah, interesting. Like, to be fair to them, they've written 5. Well, I think are generally quite interesting. Interesting comps, interesting scenarios there.
Yeah, they're all different as well. They're not just a repeat of each other.
Big focus on scoring units.
Yeah, that seems to be their thing.
Very big. I'm going to go through all the armies now to see how many scoring units people have. So I'm not going to give away the armies because I don't know if you might want to do. I don't know if you probably want to do this on the review possibly, or
yeah. I think there's one in particular that I just want to mention is that there is a list here with 3 Bloodthirsters in it.
Oh, hats off to Max! Like, you absolute legend. That is a phenomenal list. He is the type of guy who embraces the kind of wild list we brought. Well, and for that, Max, we love you.
I'm glad that, we're not the only ones who looked at this and said, what's the most ludicrous thing I can break?
Yeah, hats off to them. So I'm just going to I'm going to read out how many scoring units are in each list out of interest. 2, 4, 5, sorry. 2, then 5. 3 in the next one, I think. 3 in the one after that. Which is the triple Bloodthirster one. Absolute legend. 2 in the one after that. 2, 3 in the one after that. 2 in the one after that. 4 in the one after that. 4 in the one after that.
So it seems to be around
3. So yeah, there's not a lot with lots of scorers. It's that early Brett list that had 5, which has got the most. Otherwise, actually, you're talking 3 or 4 is quite standard. Or there's quite a lot of them with only 2.
2's quite. I guess it adds another thing, because it all depends on scoring units. If you know what the scoring units are, you kill them, then you've denied the objective to the opponent straight away. Well, that'll
interesting.
Quite interesting to see how these scenarios are going to go.
Yeah, I think so. Sort of look forward to this. I'm looking forward to the event completely for lots of different reasons. One, Cardiff is absolutely savage, just as a place and as a peoples. And if the last event is anything to go by, like, we're just going to have an absolute roar in the city. We'll have a good time Friday night. We'll have an absolute blast during the day Saturday, and then some food Saturday night or whatever. Our lists are insane, so that's going to be hilarious regardless. And the venue's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's if the Phoenixes get shot off the board turn 1 in 5 games, I'm not really that bothered.
Well, no, that's it. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously, it's always nice to win, even more so with a crazy list. But when you take a list like this, you do so knowing that actually it could all go horribly wrong at any given moment.
I just thought, as a finisher, we'd have a look at the awards, because they do dish out quite a lot of awards for.
Yeah, and to be fair, what the organisers do very well, to be fair, is find sponsors. Like, they've got loads of sponsors and awards, and they're all cool as well. Yeah. They're all very cool,
and loads of amazing, like, big and small little prizes.
Does make us wish. The alternative list was the crazy Chaos Dwarf list that I put together.
Yes.
There's no Chaos Dwarf players there, so I wish I'd taken my Chaos Dwarf list.
You'd automatically won best player.
Best Chaos Dwarf, which would have been cool. A free award, still an award. But also, I quite like the idea of taking 3 Iron Demons in a list.
I just imagine the gnashing of teeth as they have to hand you the award for best Chaos Dwarf player with that list.
Yeah.
Well,
double Iron Demon, Hell Cannon, Kadai, and then 2 Lords, one on a Bale Taurus casting Kashoot, and one on a Magic Carpet level 4 of Death, obviously.
Spirit Leech, Purple Sun.
Arabian Carpet for the walls.
You can't change your list now, so you'll have to do that next year.
I know. Be funny though, that list.
Well, you get awards for winning the event, obviously. You get the Berserker Award for the person with the most victory points at the end of the event. Best Painted Army, Best Painted Single Model, Best Sportsmanship Award. We will not be winning that.
Well, you say that. I've come joined Best Sportsman at the last 2 events. Admittedly, without a list that has 4 screams, which probably rules us out of any kind of sporting award.
It's not really that we're not sporting. It's the look on as you get your 5 phoenixes out and say that's it. That's the list. You immediately tick the not best sportsmanship award there. But oh well, I'm not changing it.
So what we need to do though is if we happen to play one of that, vote for one another so we at least get one.
Get one vote. Yeah, deal.
It's a pity, but we're okay with it.
Yeah, that's fine. You've got to take everything you can get.
Absolutely.
There is an award for middle of the road, so the person right in the middle of the final list will get an award. The Last Crusader, the player who came last, will get an award. There will be other awards on the day, oh yeah, they had little swap prizes last year, didn't they? That
was cool actually. Like the first person to miscast, or the first person to win a challenge, or they had all sorts of different bits and pieces, didn't they? It was pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah, you had to shout up if you were the first one to do something like miscast and go down the pit. And then it says painting points, but yeah, that's just you get the possible 10 tournament points if your army is painted.
Yep.
That's it. So yeah, I am very much looking forward to this.
I am, like you say, for different reasons that I've looked forward to other events, but it will be a good laugh. That's guaranteed.
I think it's nicely placed, coming off the narrative, which wasn't competitive. It wasn't a proper full-on competitive. This is full-on competitive, but I'm going to it with a different outlook.
Yeah,
to end
full-on competitive, not the way that we're going.
No, we're doing something a bit different.
Yeah, and that's not to say our armies can't win games, because that's not what we're saying. But that's not what we've built the armies for. They're built to do hilarious things.
I've built my army for just to look at my opponent's face, as I say, there's 5 phoenixes. And then
when else would we take 5 phoenixes?
Yeah.
That's the point, isn't it?
If I get annihilated, fine, but it's just for that bit where 3/5 of the phoenixes are deployed as 1 because they're all characters. Yeah, there we go.
So how many drops do you actually have?
I've got 7, which is higher than I wanted, but
7 including characters, I assume, yeah?
Yeah, 7 all in.
That's amazing.
So Karagian, the 2 Anointeds are 1 drop, and then there's the 2 Phoenixes. 1, 2. Yeah, and then there's 4 core choices. Sadly, I had to take 4 core choices.
Yeah. I have 12 drops including characters, so I've got 11 drops before my characters hit the table.
You've gone the other way to me.
Well, purely because of the core tax, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 drops in core alone.
Well, I could have got to +3, I think, on this if I'd taken spears and archers, but they're just not fast enough. I don't want anything.
No, I think the beauty of your list is that it's just so incredibly quick.
I couldn't even wedge. Actually, I could have wedged a noble on an eagle or something, or a griffin, as Steve has alternative list that you suggested.
Oh, that list. Yeah.
So actually, no, I couldn't have, because I'm at my minimum core allowance. So I couldn't. I'd have to cut a phoenix, which obviously is not going to happen.
It's the most ridiculous thing anyone's ever said, isn't it?
Any predictions on where you might finish up?
Where will I finish? No, I've got absolutely 0 predictions.
Me neither.
This kind of list is very, very matchup dependent. If I get a pleasant matchup, it could actually do really quite well. If I was to play a gun line or a light council, would not like to think how badly I would get beaten.
That's the same here. Like if I play a gun line, it's not going to end very well. But I don't.
At least everything you have that's big and flying has got a ward save.
Yeah, there's that, and there's some bits and pieces which might keep them alive a bit longer. But other than that,
either way, it's just be full of exciting things, isn't it?
It'll be line up on the edge of my deployment zone and charge, and then see where I go from there.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, nothing I'm going to admit anyway.
Honestly, deep thinking is for losers.
Yeah,
monsters, big monsters are for winners, and even if there's only you and I, there's clearly at least Max that also thinks that because he's got 3 bloodthirsts, and there's somebody else with 2 keeper of secrets.
Yes,
those people are our type of people, Mark.
There's the double keeper list as well. So,
firstly, Stan couldn't make it. I think it would be fair just to very briefly say how mental Stan's list is.
What exactly? I know it's just a sea of goblins, but what's in his list?
Obviously, without magic items, that is just scroll it because it is hilarious. He's got 2 hordes of night goblins.
Standard.
Who obviously all have fanatics. Then a standard unit of night goblins with fanatics. So there's 9 fanatics, I think.
Yeah.
He's then got a horde that is 68 models big. That is 48 cave squigs and 20 handlers. Which is outrageous. And frankly, if it gets into combat with things, I don't think there's much that wouldn't kill.
Nah.
I mean, the one thing to note that squig hoppers are immune to psychology. Squig gobbers, the squig herds, are not.
And they explode, don't they? If you kill them.
Just kill the handlers, which is why he's got 20 rather than the standard 10. He's then got 6 trolls, 2 mangler squigs, 2 Snotland pump wagons, and 2 squig gobbers. Like, the list is brilliant. It's essentially fanatics and squigs. That's all it is.
I think I'd have a real problem with that because I don't think I could kill enough of them.
Not only that, but 9 fanatics are going to really hurt.
Yeah. And I've got some chaff, but not 9 fanatics worth.
Your chaff, one or 2 fanatics are killing your chaff.
Yeah.
And my chaff would be your core.
Mine's core, there's just not very many of them.
And what's also hilarious, Stan's only got 3 scoring units. 2 hordes and 1 smallish bus of night goblins.
But he's gone for. He was supposed to be on this, but because he's only just managed to master MySpace, he can't operate Discord. So he hasn't got a chance to defend his list. But he's gone for.
There's no defense. We're both sitting here saying how wild and how we approve of these lists. Like this crazy list was the birth. To be fair to Stan, his crazy idea for a list was the birth.
That's true.
Of how the list can we make? It's just that he went crazy with little things. You and I were like, hold on a second.
He went
massive creatures.
He went for quantity. We went for quality.
Well, we went with the 2 things we both love the most: screaming and phoenixes.
Yeah, that's. He just must like squigs.
To be fair, they're awesome. Every time I play them, I forget how good squig herds are in combat. Unless you have a Death Star that can kill them first, like that is.
Aren't they all strength 5?
Yes.
Yeah,
and the front rank has got 2 attacks. So, assuming he's still got at least 3 ranks, that's 40 strength 5 attacks coming at you.
Yeah, that's nonsense. That because you can't.
He also has and he's got a level 4 on the little war for magic support and goblin shenanigans. But the best thing in his list, because he takes him as part of the theme, because it's all night goblins, his general is, of course, the one and only Skarsnik.
You got to stick to that theme.
Honestly, like it's a night goblin list, purely night goblins with full of squigs. Because even the shooting or even the artillery is squig. It's night goblin squig gobbers. There's nothing in the list that isn't night goblin themed.
Well, what can you say?
And it comes with a com score of -1. I think it's a really, really fun list.
I think however, quite well.
Stan can't pass an animosity test to save his life, so actually it could do nothing for the entire weekend.
He can't do leadership either, so...
No, it's not gone well, to be fair. What he needs is an army that's completely immune to psychology.
Entirely squig-based. Oh, no, they're not immune to psychology.
Yeah, hoppers.
Yes, they are, yeah. Has he got any of that?
He's got loads. They obviously didn't make him in the list because he was fitting in as many fanatics as he humanly could.
Well, there's always next time.
There's always next time. But yeah, so that's Stan's list. That rounds out the hilarious lists we're taking. The challenge in reality is fitting these lists, not your models because there's not a lot of them. The challenge is fitting all of these models into a car, and our bags, and the 3 adults that are also into the car.
Well, this list, though it's got no models in it, takes up more space than the Ilaria list because the Phoenixes are so fragile that I've had to fill a box full of packing material to make sure they don't snap off the bases.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to play some jiggery pokery with the car, I assume, on the way down.
It'd be like Tetris. I'll rearrange it. I might be able to drop a box, but at the minute it's spread across.
Dangerous Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's across 2 at the minute, and then you stuff on top, which is obviously going to be another bag.
Yeah. I'll work it out.
I'm sure we'll manage. There's only 3 of us, and we've got obviously the boot and then the rest of the back seat, so it'll be fine.
Be fine.
We'll work
it out.
What could possibly go wrong? I'll just remember to take my super glue with us because terror gates are definitely going to damage.
Well, speaking of what could go wrong, you're coming back to see what happens after the event.
I certainly am. I'm looking forward to the debrief, to be honest. It will be hilarious.
So as standard, we'll do an episode about what happened and whether it matched our predictions or went badly off-piste.
Before we go, how many high elves are there?
There's a lot. There's not as many as there were the last time we went because I think
there's a lot of Techless lists or Techless whatever the plural of Techless is.
There shouldn't be a plural of Techless because there's only one of them.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my god, there's 6 high elf lists.
Still a lot of high elves. I think the last time it was like 50% of the list were high elves.
Yeah, so there's 6. So you've got 6 people to try to go best in race with.
Oh, I'm not going to win that. There's people.
There's then 5 open goblin lists for Stan. And there's 3 vampire lists. And actually, all 3 different vampire lists are very themed in different ways. So I don't want to give his list away. Oh, it's after the event, so it doesn't matter. Scott's list. Our good friend Scott McHugh's another one of the Triple Crown guys.
All the Triple Crown guys are available.
They are. All the Triple Crown guys are available, but his list is very cool. I like it. It's got a massive unit of 10 hex rates and then a unit of 7 hex rates. And it's got 3 units of dogs.
The best unit in the book.
Honestly, I looked at his list, and much like my good self, he also has a flying Count Manfred. So hilarious. And then Rowan, who rounds out the vampires, he's got a mounted vampire lord, level 4 necromancers, crypt ghouls, zombies. 10. He's vampire lords and a black knight bus, and then he's got 2 units of 6 crypt horrors and a mortis engine. So those 2 units of 6 crypt horrors will all be sitting next to the mortis engine, so have a 4 up regen save.
That's quite.
That's quite spicy. Yeah, all 3 of the vampire lists are very different, really different, themed very differently. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes. If I was to put money on who would finish top of the vampires, I might be tempted to say the Duke, because that's a lot of ethereal.
Yeah, if you got no magic weapons.
And the big units to try to kill before Manfred, who's a magical beast, or the level 4 necromancer that he's also got, reses them back. I think this is gonna be a very hard list to take points off, would be my suggestion.
I've just had a look at the High Elves as well, and I can't see White Lion Horde Valarial.
No, so interesting. Obviously, we've got our first round draws already. And I have High Elves for my first opponent. And although he has White Lions in the list, there's only 23 of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's a -1 comp, and it's in no way, shape, or form a bad looking High Elf list. I appreciate we can't say magic items, etc., but there's only one Phoenix. There's no Horde. There's, of course, a Techless, because it seems to be the event of Techlesses.
Well, that one you're playing, yeah, it's 23. Techless doesn't buff any units, so there's no ward save for them.
Well, unless there's the ban of the World Dragon
Could be.
On either them or the BSB, because there is a BSB there.
Could be.
I would imagine there will be, and then he's also got 18 Phoenix Guard, so there'll be there's almost 2 bunker units. There's not a lot of, there's no, what I would call, there's no hammer there, there's just anvils. I suppose 23 White Lions are still going to cause damage.
They're not going anywhere because they're stubborn.
And, Techless is a magical beast, even though he also does not have a ward save.
Or armor.
Or armor. But you know what a no ward save Techless is calling out for?
Spirit Leech?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, to find out how that goes, tune in to the next episode where we find out what happened at Cardiff.
Amazing.
We'll see you on that one then. So thanks for coming back again for the 20th time, Scott. And I'll no doubt do the same references that you always are on this podcast when we do the next one. So that's not
looking forward to it. Thanks, Mark.
See you later.
See you, mate.